The big house that was Shays Greens. Mm-hmm. It's for sale now, I think, isn't it?
Emporium.
Oh, the Buckingham Brazorium?
Yeah, well, that
I don't know how many people had looked at that building where they wanted to move it, but because it's built, everything's built on, they couldn't move it because it would just fall apart.
Well, yeah, it was added on to
added on.
Because when it was first built, when I was born in that, it used to be a manager of one of the mining.
Mining, yeah.
And apparently Edna used to go over there, my oldest sister, and the wife was quite a gardener. And Edna would go over there and take all the tulip heads, and there'd be a track right over to the house, so the lady would know that it was Edna. Always, yeah. And then it was Shays Greens. It was their private home, and then it was the guest house for Comox logging.
Yeah.
The guest house was down farther.
No, that was the guest house.
Okay.
I worked in the boarding house too. That was
the one down farther?
Yeah, that where 7-Eleven is now.
Mm-hmm.
That was a
that was Abbotsford.
Hotel. That was Abbotsford,
yeah.
And that was
that was
the boarding
logging
house.
Yeah, it was boarding house.
Yeah.
It wasn't the Abbotsford anymore then.
No, it was Comox boarding house.
But it was the old Abbotsford.
Yeah, Comox bought it from them.
Yeah.
The hotel, and made it to a boarding house.
Yeah, I worked in there. We had 150 men. I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we lived down behind where the Pretoria Hotel is on Kitchener Street.
Was. And
I had to walk up there, and I used to walk up the middle of the road 4:30 in the morning, because we got to work. We had to start peeling sacks of potatoes, carrots.
Why did you walk in the middle of the road?
Too many crazies.
That's right, even in those years.
At 4 in the morning?
Yeah. People out, you're just a bunch of creeps.
So stay away from the shadows.
And I was only 16. So, and then of course, you got all the vegetables ready and you got everything for breakfast, and then you turn around, and after the men left for work, then you could sit down and have breakfast. And then it was time for the office staff to come in for breakfast. And then when you got everything all cleaned up and ready and the meat all cut up for the sandwiches in the afternoon, then you could go home if you weren't on lunch shift.
Oh, okay.
And then you finished at night, at 8 o'clock at night.
Wow.
By the time you got finished.
So it's basically all day.
And it was 7 days a week.
Did they have different food for the workers? You had the workers come in, and then you had the office guys come in.
No,
Was it the
it's all
same
the
food?
same.
So there was no favoritism?
No.
Nobody got a better cut of meat, eh?
No, nothing. I got cut really bad on a roast of pork, cutting it up for slicing for the lunches, and right around. And, it was right down to the bone. And it was early in the morning because and we had to scrub out the dining room every Monday. And this was the Monday morning. And, we had a cook that was quite miserable. You couldn't even, when you went to work, you had to wash your own white uniforms and starch them and iron them. And you had to have 2 a day because you had no creases. You couldn't go in the dining room with a crease.
Yeah.
She wouldn't let me go to the doctor's, nothing else. And I had tea towels wrapped around and around, and it was still bleeding through. So I finally, the girls did the dining room, and they said, you just stand. And then I did go to the doctor's, but he said he couldn't even stitch it because it was too wide open. And so, but don't put your hands in water. Well, guess what? She put me in the dishpan that night.
Did you tell her you couldn't do it?
Well, of course, but Jessie didn't listen. But no rubber gloves in those days. There was no liquid soap. You used Fells Naphtha soap, the bars, and then you had a can with wires on and holes in the bottom. And you had that over the tap, and that's what went down into the... And every time the water got...
Oh, you mean you put the soap into the can with the perforation, and it would kind of like agitate as the water went through?
Well, yeah, because you didn't have liquid stuff.
Oh, okay.
And you didn't have rubber gloves to have on. And every time you'd get into the water that you could stand your hands, hot, she'd come along and turn the hot water on, make it hotter. Yeah.
So what did you do? You had this big cut. Did you do it anyway?
I had to, or I wouldn't have had a job.
Do you still have a scar?
Oh, yeah, it went right around. It's faded out more now.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
She had a boyfriend. Breakfast wasn't on the table yet. And he had a heart attack and dropped dead there. Wow, and here you got 150 men waiting to come in for breakfast. We had a terrible time. We had to turn around the staff with us that was on there, 4 of us. We had to be making the hot cakes because the guys had to eat. They had to go to work.
Meanwhile,
Meanwhile,
he's
the dog
lying where?
laying on the kitchen floor. Right
And you
in
guys
there.
are cooking around him?
Well, the stoves would be over that way, so he was over here.
Mm-hmm.
But then, the doctor had to come, and
And she must have been really upset.
it was just terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they treated their men really well then, eh? The cooking and everything, the
Oh,
food,
yeah.
the
And-
boarding house at Comox.
And we used to get our bread, and at first, they didn't have slicers. We had to slice it all
For sandwiches.
for sandwiches. And the bull cook, he would bring all the buckets in, like from the guys that so you had to make sure they were clean and opened up, and then
What do you mean the buckets?
They're lunch buckets.
Oh,
Lunch
okay.
pails.
Yeah, they
Okay.
were metal,
Yeah.
Most in logging camps and that, they make their own sandwiches, but we made their sandwiches. We had a cook that would come on at night, and she'd make all the cakes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd have to cut them, and the cookies she'd have. And so they'd have to have a piece of cake and a cookie.
Well, you filled up their buckets, or did they
Yeah.
come along and pick up what they wanted?
No, we had to fill them.
Treated like royalty.
Oh,
When
they
did they close?
I would think in the 50s they went down, because Crown Z came in after
Yeah.
that.
And
When
so they closed the boarding house at the same
Well,
time.
Comox logging would have been down then. Crown Z took over.
Yeah, but they were there too.
But they didn't stay in the, because I'm thinking about the hotels, the Travelers and that, how that was overflow for the boarding house.
Every hotel was
Yeah.
full in town. Yeah. Plus the boarding house. They had a bunch of rooms upstairs.
Yeah. Just housing all the men, eh? A lot of people
Yeah.
would come from out of town and work
Oh,
here.
yeah.
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure.
A lot of them came from Courtney and up that way because that's where Comox came from.
I remember as a kid with Shirley Cross, and we used to deliver Vancouver Sun, and we'd go down there and drop them off at the doors, the same as go up to Travelers and drop them off there at the doors, and all they could smell in their sweat.
Oh.